The Black Ship Side Story, Baron of Screaming Forests. Day 27. Wyatt carefully inspected the plaque one last time as he finished the final touches on the presentation piece. The wood itself had come from the burnt stump of a tree on his barren land. Originally, the slab had been far too large to use as a simple souvenir. Someone tossing scrap wood into the box meant for sawdust used. Later, in packing crates head, noticed the intricate grain patterns and unusual structure. Instead of throwing it away, they had quietly set it aside, thinking it might be useful for something more meaningful. Later that day, when Marcus passed through the workshop, he noticed the slab as well. The shape caught his eye immediately, so he placed it with several other unusual pieces of timber. Rather than letting it be discarded, that small decision turned out to be fortunate when Wyatt later went searching for a piece of wood suitable for mounting the fragment of Drazen wreckage. The slab was waiting for him. One of the carpenters in Newtown had been kind enough to prepare it properly. The man had flattened the timber, carefully preserving the beautiful burl marks that formed near the roots. He planed the surface smooth and shaped the board into a gentle oval. The finished piece measured roughly 8 centimeters long and 35 centimeters wide, just under 4 centimeters thick. It was simple, solid, and perfect. Wyatt had placed the jagged chunk of Drazen spacecraft on the left side of the plaque and traced its outline lightly with a pencil so he would know exactly where it would sit. Then he picked up his carving tools. Fesick had done remarkable work restoring them. He had first met her nearly 2 weeks earlier, while wandering through the engineering sections looking for assistance. When Wyatt encountered the Yukanti technician, Fesick explained what he was trying to accomplish. She had listened quietly before replying with respectful sincerity. "Please, sir, we owe you many favors. Leave the tools with me. I will return them tomorrow." And so Wyatt had done exactly that. Now, as he examined the tools again, he felt a quiet sense of gratitude. Each blade had been cleaned, polished, and refinished until it gleamed. The metal carried a mirror-like shine, and every cutting edge had been sharpened to razor precision. Fesick had even included a strop and polishing compound so Wyatt could maintain the blades himself. But it wasn't the blades that made him smile. It was the handles. The old, worn wooden grips had been removed entirely. In their place, Fesick had carefully mounted perfectly preserved Drazen claws. They had been shaped and fitted so naturally that they rested comfortably in Wyatt's hands, almost as if they had been designed specifically for him. The tools felt balanced, precise, ideal for the delicate work of carving the plaque. Before starting, Wyatt had written out the inscription he intended to carve. He had even checked with Clara beforehand to ensure that the wording would be acceptable. Only then had he begun the painstaking task. Letter by letter, line by line, each character was carved, slowly and deliberately into the wood, always between his official duties. He measured spacing carefully, making certain every letter aligned perfectly with the others. The height, shape, and proportions all had to match. The work had taken many long hours, but in Wyatt's opinion, it was one of the most precise pieces of carving he had ever produced. Fesick had helped once again, when it came time to mount the fragment of the Drazen vessel. She had scanned the wreckage and used a fabrication unit to machine a perfectly matched recess into the wooden plaque. The metal fragment fit neatly into place. Then she secured it with 2 hidden bolts. She had even added mounting brackets to the back of the plaque so it could be attached securely to a wall. Finally, Wyatt applied a layer of wax polish and carefully buffed the surface until the wood gleamed with a warm, natural shine. Only after that did they fix the piece of Drazen wreckage permanently into its place. Now, Wyatt stepped back and studied the finished work. Slowly, he read the inscription aloud in his mind. "Tuus Danel Ferentis, you could have run, but you stayed instead. Battle of Hastrong, Fanda first, 4156. At the bottom he had added his own signature. Nothing elaborate, just his name. They would be leaving the Hastrong system tomorrow, which meant it was finally time to present the plaque. To the young lord, Wyatt had decided to deliver the gift privately. He wasn't entirely certain what the formal customs were for presenting something like this, and he had no desire to accidentally offend a noble through ignorance. So he had arranged a quiet meeting at Istanel's office in the Eternal Garden, after carefully placing the plaque into a protective box. Wyatt headed for the Neue Navio's shuttle bay and signed out a small shuttlecraft. Both Clara and Redford knew what he was planning and had given their approval, though they had clearly been a little surprised by his reasoning when Wyatt arrived at the Eternal Garden. He immediately noticed that the place looked different. Construction work was underway. House Ferentis was installing new lighting throughout the complex, and several walls in the hangar area had been freshly painted. The entire space felt brighter and more welcoming than before. Ferentis' servant was waiting for him as soon as he stepped out of the shuttle, the box carefully balanced in his hands. The man approached respectfully. "Lord Staples, Lord Istanel has asked me to escort you to his office." Wyatt winced slightly inside at the title, but kept his expression perfectly neutral. "Of course," he replied politely. "Please lead the way." As they walked through the corridors, Wyatt noticed how much had changed. The oppressive feeling that once lingered in the halls was gone. The lighting was brighter, the shadows fewer. It was now almost impossible to imagine a Drazen creature lurking unseen in the darkness. The servant eventually led Wyatt into Istanel's office. Wyatt stepped into the L-shaped room and paused briefly. The space had already been refurnished. Elegant furniture filled the room, along with finely woven wall coverings. Everything carried the unmistakable atmosphere of noble status and wealth. Everything except one wall. That section had been recessed and replaced with thick, transparent material, perhaps glass or something even stronger. Beyond the barrier was a preserved section of the Drazen vessel's interior. Every scar, every detail, frozen exactly as it had been. Istanel rose from his desk and walked forward to greet him. Noticing Wyatt's gaze, he spoke quietly. "This was the room where my helmet failed," Istanel explained. "I wanted one reminder of that moment. Something that would ensure I never forget what the Drazen intend to do to us." Wyatt started to say, "My lord," but Istanel raised a hand. "Istanel, please. And I believe you prefer to be called Wyatt." Wyatt nodded. Double quotes, "Yes, I do. Thank you." Istanel waved dismissively, as if the formality didn't matter. "So, Wyatt," he said, "what can I do for you today?" Wyatt chuckled softly. "Actually, I've brought you a gift." He placed the box on the table and opened it carefully before lifting out the plaque. "It didn't sit right with me," Wyatt continued, "that you stayed aboard the Neue Navio during the battle and never received any recognition for it. Official or not, I felt you deserved something to mark what you did." He set the plaque gently on the table, It isn't much. Just a larger, personalized version of the souvenirs the Baron is producing to raise funds. But I hoped you might accept it from me. Istinel stared at the plaque in stunned silence. Clearly, he had not expected anything like this. When he picked it up and examined the craftsmanship more closely, the surprise only deepened. The piece was obviously handmade, and the quality was exceptional. He looked back at Wyatt. Who made this? He asked. It's incredible. Wyatt shrugged modestly. It was a group effort. One of the carpenters in Newtown prepared the wood. I carved the inscription myself, and a helpful Yaconte technician aboard the Noir Navio mounted the fragment of the Drazen ship and added the fittings. Then he added quietly, the wood itself came from one of the trees destroyed during the orbital bombardment. I thought it would be symbolic. For a brief moment, it looked as though Istinel might actually cry. His eyes began to glisten, but he quickly blinked and shook his head, forcing himself back under control. Wyatt politely pretended not to notice, and Istinel politely pretended not to notice that Wyatt had noticed. Finally, Istinel spoke again. I deeply appreciate the effort you have put into creating this, he said sincerely. I will treasure it. Wyatt simply nodded. Double quotes. Well, that was the reason for my visit. And if there's nothing else, I should probably head back. I've just received a report that several new supply shipments have arrived. Istinel glanced down at his datapad. Would that be the 271.2 tons of toys? Wyatt sighed. Yes, that would be the one.